Today we meet in Tantanya, Adelaide, on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we extend our respects to Kaurna elders past and present. We recognise this country's rich traditions of knowledge and storytelling and pay respects to all Kaurna storytellers and all Aboriginal and First Nations storytellers. Oscast. Amy and is a podcast that explores all kinds of bookish things, and that can include some pretty adult content. So please be aware that some of this content will be not safe for work or for young ears, and be careful who's listening when you are. Welcome back to Amy and. I'm Amy Matthews, and we are continuing Horror Month for Halloween. And I'm joined on the couch today by Harry Stewart, who's never bothered to sit on the couch with me before.
Never bothered to sit on the couch. I understand now why you guys...
It is weird because you lean.
Oh, but it's kind of nice. I see why you like your episodes go for an hour and 15 minutes when you're lying on the couch.
Shade already casting.
Nice to be.
And we are also joined by Millie Heffernan.
That's me.
And by a special guest, she sounds so glad to be with us. They're like, oh my God, you two are a pain in the ass already, and we've just started. We're joined by our special guest, Riley Jones. Hello.
Yes. And I do my writing under Riley Bluefield. So like yeah.
Brilliant.
So Jones is academic.
Yep.
And Bluefield, which is the name I'm taking when I marry my partner.
And you will be publishing under both?
So like Bluefield will be my like fiction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jones will be academic work.
Correct.
I love that. Great. That fits so well.
Yeah, that really does.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so Riley is currently doing the PhD at Flinders and is looking at the genre we're going to be talking about today, which is horror romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I don't know if anyone's been paying attention, but seems to be taking off. It's like all of a sudden, and I'm really curious to kind of pick into how the genres blend together, because it seems like there's a huge range of horror romance that is more horror, horror romance that's quite light and fluffy rom-com with like a ghost or a vampire or whatever.
Yeah.
And then stuff that's sitting in that really weird middle space, which is doing, I can't even work it out. And then Abby and I had a little like headbutt the other day about what is the line between horror and paranormal romance, which I think is something we could actually pull apart a little bit more.
I was not privy to this conversation. Who fell on which side?
Oh, it was interesting because we were doing this library event and someone asked us about horror romance, and
then you guys started your own tiff though, really.
Yeah, it wasn't even a tiff.
I don't even think anybody said what's the difference.
They
just started going, well, no, hang on, that's a paranormal. Well, no, I think that's
and then
because
I'm like, well, for me, paranormal romance kind of does sit under light horror. But for other people, it doesn't.
That's what I would have picked.
So we're going to save this question.
I was going to say, I'm so excited
to
get into that.
I'm getting distracted.
I think the Peanut Gallery.
Amy called Bride horror romance.
That's right.
It is.
That's right.
That is horror romance. It's just light and fluffy romance horror.
Well, see, I was listening to our first episode of the month, and I liked what I think it was Tabby said. If it horrifies you, then it's horror. Like it's just the simplest.
No, but when you're blending two,
it's like no, I don't think that. Just because it horrifies you, it's horror.
I disagree though, but in some ways, because I think once you're blending two genres, the affects are different, and which affect are you privileging? Yeah. So if it's romance horror where you're privileging the romance affect is privileged, but you're still using tropes and conventions of horror.
But I don't think that makes it a horror necessarily.
But it makes it a horror romance. But this is my argument. It's like
I'm understanding what you're saying now. I'm getting more than what you did the other day.
Paranormal romance to me is stuff like Twilight, and I can't think of another example. No, my brain's just gone completely blank.
I know it's like what I'm doing, but you can't ask me.
Well, I made the argument the other day that that Twilight is paranormal romance because it's it is very soft and fluffy, and he's not. He doesn't kill an awful lot of people, and she doesn't find him like Midtown Massacre. Instead finds him in the cafeteria sparkling in the sunshine.
I think
like
He is not sparkling.
It's
in the
like
sunshine in the
anything.
cafeteria. Thank you very much.
oh, sorry.
It's only when he's outside.
He's outside. Sorry.
That's why they picked forks.
It could have been.
Exactly.
Oh,
But I think
God.
if you take elements, almost like any genre or any story, if you take elements and describe them out of context in a certain way, they will seem horrifying. There are parts of Twilight when you describe them out of context of the book. You, as a person who had never read Twilight, you would be like, oh, that's horrifying. But because you're reading it as you're reading Twilight, you're like, yeah, it's just Twilight.
What about horror comedy then? Like there's movies
Sure.
like Tremors where the affect is you laugh at it,
Is
but
Tremors
it's still
supposed
doing
to be a
horror
comedy?
stuff.
Scary movie, like things like that.
Yeah.
Mixed affect.
Shaun of the
Shaun of the Dead, which is a
Shaun of the
romance.
Dead.
That's a horror romance. Shaun of the Dead.
Is it a romance?
Is it a romance?
Yeah.
Who falls in love in Shaun of the Dead?
I feel like I'm on Reddit.
Yeah, that's basically.
Like I'm reading a Reddit.
I
forum.
feel like that should be our cover quote for the pod.
I mean, this is a great time to say that I don't actually have a solidified opinion about any of this.
Anyway,
I'm just shooting the shit.
I think it's fascinating because I think genres are so defined by critics and the market.
Yeah.
And so it is. But some things have mixed affect and mixed. They're drawing on two different conventions, but it might be just, I don't know how much sugar's in it, how much spice is in it.
Sure. So if we split them up, what is the affect of horror? What is the affect of romance? Where do they Venn diagram and where do they differ?
I'm going to throw that to Riley because
Contrasting.
that's your question, my friend, because you're studying this. So,
Yeah.
so horror, if you were, because you're kind of looking at, and I want to move on to like queer horror romance is a whole different thing as well. And queer horror and queer romance are a whole different kind of set of affects and conventions. But how would you describe horror affect?
Just horror affect?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big question. You've got time.
No, it's okay. I was thinking about this also, like watching the previous episode with Tabby and Oscar and like the definition of horror. And I think I come pretty close to agreeing with this idea of like not the success of scaring an audience, but the intent to scare. However, I come up against that a lot simply because like I am one of those people who I don't really find any of it scary. Any horror that I read, play, watch, I look at it and I'm just going, this shit, can I swear?
Yeah. Yeah.
This
We
shit
are
is so
not
fucking
PG.
cool. That is like the only thing I think when I'm watching horror. It very rarely actually scares me. And so while I think it doesn't have to scare you, it does then become hard, especially as a creator, to determine what is going to be scary to other people.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, I can't give a definitive explanation, like a definition for the
So,
horror
but
genre.
but you would define like tropes or conventions, for example.
Yeah, I think,
It's a hard question.
yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah, because I'm like,
Yeah, that's why I'm like I think the intent to scare. One thing that I've read is also like leaning less away from like this elicited reaction of fear and more so like it just being morbid or repulsive.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to like be super tense and have you like waiting for something scary to happen, or it doesn't have to have a jump scare or like raise hairs on the back of your neck. It can just be really gross.
Yeah, I was going to say revulsion is a big thing.
Which
like
is a lot of what
disgust.
body horror is.
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't like, this build up of suspense. It's just, oh, why are you tearing out your intestines right now?
Yeah.
the repulsion is the thing I find the most terrific. That is
Repulsion and disgust.
what is horror to me.
Yeah.
As opposed to like scary clowns and like poltergeists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just the idea that is.
And also
happening.
like the idea that the repulsion is specifically like, it's repulsive according to like the traditional, greater, larger audience
Yeah.
as well. Like what is a layperson going to walk into a cinema, pick a random horror movie and sit there and go, "Ugh, that's disgusting.
So we're looking
Because
for broad fears and broad disgust as opposed to trying to pick out very niche,
you can pick out very niche ones. I think this is the thing is why it's so hard to, it depends.
It's this, but also it can be this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it can be very niche things, but the goal is to take a niche thing and amp it up so much that it can be horrifying for a large amount of
Yeah,
people.
fair enough. Like cutting your finger on glass as opposed to, like you said, digging out your intestines.
And
is where
linked
it
to
goes
that
to
is, not to bring Freud into it, screw that man, but his theories of Eros and Thanatos and the idea of the life drive and the death drive, and really about fascination, about the human fascination with death. It's like that rubbernecking instinct, right? When you see a crash, like what's happening there. And there's something about horror for me that is like like something dark and shiny and fascinating.
Yeah, I like to read about what's going to happen before it happens because I'm so fascinated by it. Because I'm like, how is this going to end? Where is that spider going to come crawling out from? Because I saw it go into her drink, you know, like, and you're right. There is like, I'm fascinated to find out how. I'm watching Alien Earth at the moment, the new Disney Plus series. I think it's awesome personally. I do not like all that really gross stuff, but I'm fascinated. Like it comes out tonight. Like that's what I'll be doing after this. I'll be sitting at home with a glass of wine watching Alien Earth because I'm fascinated by how this chain of events is going to lead to so many grotesque, like, you know, anything that reminds me that I'm a human flesh sack is everything that is needed to repulse me. And majority of these things, that's how they end, right? So my fascination in the cause of the chain of events, I think, is what stokes me into watching horror, but then also I can't live with it after.
The other thing that we haven't touched on talking about horror yet too is the element of freak show, of freakishness. That seems to be a big element.
I think that's a good tie-in to queer horror as well.
Oh,
because to talk about the freak show, it's
there's the horror. It's a horror classic, I would say, because it's that old. The movie Freaks. I can't even remember. I think it was like 30s or 40s. It came out, and it was like it's like a circus freak show. It literally is, and it's like here's a bunch of people with physical disabilities and who look really wild, and they're going to perform for you. I don't know where I was going with that.
It's a good point. Like that's the point,
that's
right?
The point.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is very like very much about like, you know, disability and queerness.
But we're still doing that, right? Like American Horror Story, full of people with disabilities or differently bodied people, and that's the horror of it. That's what makes them the freak.
Well, we mentioned Silence of the Lambs last episode. I mean, that's a famous example, right, of queerness as freak show.
Yep. So how does that all intersect when you're talking about queer romance horror?
Because obviously romance puts queerness, like a celebration of queerness, to the forefront, like queer joys in there too, which changes the whole genre, right?
So like when you're reading or watching a queer romance horror, is it more often that the freaks or the monsters are the queer ones, or that there is regular people who are queer who are facing the horrors?
I was actually talking to Justina about this before, where it's like there is definitely a variety. Like you probably see as much of both, but what I am consuming more is queer people as the monsters. That's that's my niche. I like to get into like the perspective of the monster because all kinds of people, all othered communities and people have been made monsters in horror. So that's like where my interest lies.
Yeah, which is so interesting because I do feel like in this day and age of increasing conservatism, the party line is, well, we don't make the queer people the freaks anymore. We don't make them the monsters anymore because we did that in the past and we don't like that. Or it's like, well, no, we as a community have been left feeling like monsters and freaks. So actually now we've been taught to identify with the monster. So actually I think we should be leaning more into making monstrous queer horrors.
You can't take that away.
Yeah,
like
you can't just take it away from us
so
now.
much with it for so long, made a home out of it, and then you snatch it away.
So then to take the queer monster and then to also give that queer monster romance, I think is pretty radical. So I would love to hear at the end of the episode your Rex, those stories.
Well, where does it intersect then with romance? Because obviously we have all of this feeling that comes from horror and that comes from queer horror's history and story. But how does it join with queer romance? And if these two I agree it's a radical idea to do this, but is it done well? Because I will admit I haven't read any queer romance horror.
There's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
You will be this month because Book of the Month
Book of the month.
is a queer
One of
horror.
the best
yes.
examples.
Really?
That I'm like not even just because it's the book of the month. I'm like, no, this is like that is like the pinnacle of queer horrormance is what I would say. Feast while you can.
Beautiful. Starting right at the top then.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all downhill from here until you
Because
read
romance
Riley's.
is quite hopeful, right? Like the idea of romance is that it's a hopeful affect. Whereas, I mean, I don't know, I guess horror could be hopeful. I have no idea. I'm not a horror expert, nor really a horror person, I would say. But my knowledge of horror is that it tends to be kind of miserable or scary. You don't have a lot of very, very happy endings. So then how are you taking that hopeful affect of romance and combining it with that feeling that you get from horror? What's the end point?
Okay, I think that's pretty interesting. 'Cause like I struggle a bit more with like defining horror, but that eliciting those responses of fear and repulsion are definitely key. And then they have like a very wide spectrum of horror. Definitely can be hopeful. It can also just be disastrous. Full stop. There's literally not an inkling of hope until people pick it apart and they're like, actually, I found that there is.
I guess there is a hope to surviving the monster, right?
Yes, and that will ultimately be like whether that is fulfilled at the end or not. It'd be like, so it leaves with a hopeful ending because the final girl survives. So it's like that's a little bit of hope at the end. Or sometimes everyone dies, and that's just like, okay, the end. Whereas like romance does have that. It's like guaranteed. Here is your happy ending.
Yeah, I guess because romance is like you have to have the happy ending. That's what makes it a romance.
Yeah.
So you're going into a horror. So even though you know it's a horror, you know it has to have a happy ending.
Yeah, but I
It's a
guess
romance?
For some people.
can they have a
Yeah.
happy ending where they kiss and where they kiss and like they have a happy for now, but then they're eaten alive by zombies? Like, I mean, you fulfilled the romance plot for the happy for it, like
Sure.
happily ever after, but
Especially if it's happy for now. Happy for now for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Or happily forever after in the afterlife because they've just been eaten alive. And then you kind of fulfill both the horror and the romance. But I don't know if I'd be too happy with that. Like I'd be like, they're finally
would.
together. And it's like, oh my God.
At least you're not a freak, Harry.
You just wouldn't get it.
Just don't understand.
We're on the same wavelength as us. But that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when you bring that happy ending in, it can definitely bring in that sort of like bit more of a guarantee of a happy ending. But because there's also the horror, it sort of, I think, expands the idea of the happy ending. Like genuinely, like joking about dying. But I'm like, no, I think in horror, it's like they can both be zombies and like actively decaying and they're going to die next week, but they are together as a couple and they're currently happy. That's still a happily ever after, even if it's incredibly morbid.
Yeah, I like that though.
Yeah,
I think
because
speaks to the
romance.
queer life a little bit because
Yeah.
sometimes it is we might die next week or terrible things could happen to us next week. Not that this doesn't happen to human beings
No, yeah.
in general, but specifically that queer feeling of everything
Risk.
could fall apart, but we are happy together right now, and that in itself is a radical act.
Yeah, because romance really is about ending on the highest, happiest feeling moment. So you could, I mean, it could be like the Thelma and Louise where you're freeze framing something that's
Yeah.
about to be horrible, but
That's such
you're
a good example,
ending on
yeah.
a
That is
high
such a good
affect.
example, yeah.
Yeah.
But how much horror can we fit into it then before it stops becoming horror romance and it's just a horror book?
The limit
with
does not exist.
just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you on that. Like, I do think it's a sliding scale and we get a bit too rigid around those definitions. Because for me, like, to go back, because I think it's interesting, the paranormal thing, I would just slide paranormal into my definition of horror as a subgenre of horror.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. I have always conceptualized it
Millie,
that same way.
not agreeing with
because
me.
I'm thinking on the spot, right? So first, it is
Like
first draft
according to my
thoughts.
readings,
But I think because you're talking about paranormal, so we're talking about things like books that have werewolves in them and vampires. I think just because it's got a vampire doesn't make it horror.
No, but then that's when I think we go back to the talking about what kind of vampire it is, what kind of werewolf, and
Like,
how
you
they
think
slot
about
into the story.
What We Do in the Shadows, that is purely a comedy, and that's
Yeah.
full of vampires.
Agreed.
That is purely comedy. There is no horror to that.
That's a horror comedy.
So I think I really like what you said about the sliding scale. For me, it's like I don't think something having just a vampire in it doesn't automatically make it a horror, but that's also according to the very traditional definition of what horror is. Because it's gotten so mangled over time and we've got like 10 billion subgenres, it's like how can we collectively agree at what point paranormal becomes horror? So instead, I just like to think of it as like horror is a sliding scale, and you have the very, very start of it where it is so chill, and it's like, here are these creatures, these figures that can be horrifying in many ways, but in this case, it's so laid back. It is like the lightest light horror that you can
I'm going to
get.
stop everyone here because I'm not talking about is it a horror or is it a paranormal. I'm saying is it a horror romance, a paranormal romance.
Yeah,
I think once we mash a genre together, the sliding scale is quite big.
It expands even more.
Yeah.
Because once you bring in the positive affect of romance, that is going to influence the negative affect of the horror.
Yeah.
So even...
Because it might just have a dash of horror and the vampire's the dash.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think there also needs to be
a supernatural comedy. And supernatural is not necessarily horror.
Supernatural
Wait,
for some for some people can be like inherently horror. So this is the thing. It is controversial. This is a site of debate in the field, ongoing, decades. Some people are like, no, supernatural does not equal horror. And other people are like, yes, it definitely does.
And also, what we do in the shadows is playing with horror. It's got Nosferatu in it. It's like totally playing with horror.
It's a comedy. It's just nothing but a comedy.
I think
There's no subgenre.
they're just labels.
It's right up the top.
They're just labels for marketing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they have all these different definitions that different people are going to have different opinions about.
And fair. If you went to what we do in the shadows expecting a horror movie, you'd be angry.
That's what I was about to say. It's the marketing right, but also for people to figure out what they want to watch. So if you said to me, what we do in the shadows is a horror comedy, I'd be like, great, I'm not going to watch that because I don't love horror.
Yeah.
I will probably not seek that out. But if you're like, oh, this movie or the TV show is like a supernatural comedy, it's vampires, but it's got vampires in it, but it's a comedy, I'd be like, oh, yeah, all right, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, that's why I agree with the Ali Hazelwood thing, because it's not a I wouldn't say it's horror romance, because if you picked that up and somebody was like, this is a horror romance. you'd be
Nah,
like,
but you
variety.
sell
most
it.
of the time at like a
But
boarding
you
school.
sell it as like romance. Like when they say horror romance, you can tell by the cover if this is romance with a dash of horror or
Yes.
if this is horror. Like Feast While You Can looks like a horror novel,
yeah,
That is
not
true.
a romance novel. Ali Hazelwood looks like a romance. But like Buffy is so
that's what I was going to say. I was going to say,
Like
genre do you
Riley
think
and I are on
Buffy
the same
is?
page.
Would you...
Oh, Buffy is probably a dash of horror. Like, I don't know what the second
Yeah, and that's
mashup
just a
genre
bunch of like
is.
wacky, very campy werewolves and vampires.
It is
What
like,
is
it is
Scooby Doo?
comedy-ish.
What's Scooby-Doo?
What's Scooby Doo?
It's horror
That's
for kids.
comedy. It's a kid's cartoon.
Yeah.
It's
That's
horror.
pure
It's horror for kids. It's the horror ride at Movie World in Queensland.
I feel we're getting outplayed here, Mel. we are Gordon.
Perhaps because neither of us are horror experts.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. Give me 20 minutes of good reading and I'll be back.
That's right. Just let me open Google for a second.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo, horror for kids. Yeah, shit.
Yeah, so
you got
I'm
me
a
there.
big
I guess.
I agree with everyone a little bit, but I definitely lean more towards what you're saying. The sliding scale. It's a sandpit that you can play in and do anything
Yeah.
you want.
But and it
I
shows
don't
how
believe in strict boundaries for genres.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
super don't.
It's so messy. I just think it's so messy genres, and like they are marketing tools. And you're right. Like you wouldn't go to it if it was horror. And I really feel like I missed the mark when Riley said, "Can I swear?" That we should have said, "We're werewolves, not swearwolves." I really feel like I missed a joke.
We'll just capture you saying it and edit
And
it.
then we'll just
no one will know. No one will know the
superimpose
difference.
you on top of yourself saying it. But then, see, like we're all for the, it's a sliding scale, and that obviously the subgenres and stuff are marketing tools. I agree with that, even though that makes me admit that all of my like rigid opinions means I've just been played by the system. I'm like, shit.
You're a capitalist,
I'm
Harry.
a
You need to get more radical.
But where do we still, if we're going to say it's a sliding scale, I still think that there are slightly drawn lines as to what we expect from horror and what we expect from romance when we mash the two together. I still think there has to be some sort of expectation.
Well, I do
Might
think
pick up
like
that.
Ali Hazelwood is a romance novel with horror elements.
With horror elements,
Yeah.
yeah, agreed. But, then,
But you can say that with all romance, because if you were to go for like suspense, romantic suspense, the romance is stronger than the suspense usually.
yeah, I mean, it often is when you smash romance with anything, isn't it? Romance is
I was
kind
going to
of
say
like...
romantasy is
Yeah.
the big source of this debate about what counts as that versus fantasy with just romance or romance with just fantasy.
Yeah, which is the
Yeah.
age-old thing you've always said for years, which is if you can remove the romance plot
It's not a
from the
romance.
book, Yeah, and nothing changes. It's
I saw
Because
something
most
like
books
that,
have a romance
The
in them.
blurb. If the romance and horror aren't both included in the summary, then it's not
Yeah.
horror romance.
Yeah, that's true. Except
we-
I like you, some people will put it in there so that you pick up the book and then you read it and you're like,
It
this
needs
is
to be
nothing
like
what
actually
you said
relevant
it's
to
like.
the plot. It can't be one line at the end where it's like, and there's a guy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. We saw. Have you guys read Stacey McEwen?
No.
That's, so that's her name, right? I'm getting it right. Stacey McEwen. Just had a mental blank. So we saw her at conference, and she writes romantasy, and she had just had a book rejected from a publisher that was contracted because they said it's fantasy, it's not really romantasy. Like, you need more romance if we're going to sell it as romantasy. Which she was like, fair. I wrote a fantasy book.
Yeah.
But it is true, I think, that often we get into the mixing of genres because we love the genres, right? Like, if you're writing a horror romance, you love horror. And there's a point at which, and I think we talked to Mick and Onge about that when you see our interview with authors next week. Mick and Onge, who wrote Feast While You Can, they talked about that, about what is the line between where it's horror and where it's romance and what's more dominant in the book, and being very aware of how you play that. So, Riley, when you're writing, how do you balance that? Like, where do you come down on I guess I know you're still writing it, so
I've got previous projects that I've written that
yeah,
I've finished
so
that I can speak to as well.
yeah. And when I've read, I mean, the work I've read of yours is the romance is really central.
I was going to say my honors artifact, that was Horrormance.
Yeah.
I just couldn't fit the romance like into the theory.
It's there
I didn't
though,
have enough
yeah. It's
words.
there in the creative work. It's very central, yeah. So I guess as you're working on your novel, if we're thinking about that sliding scale, where does yours fit on the sliding scale? Where do you want it to fit?
I would say it's on the sliding scale of horror or along horrormance.
Yeah.
Like, it is horror heavy. Like, it is very gruesome. There is you're gonna love this.
I might.
There's fungal infections.
Oh, I will love that. I'm quite disgusted. But I love horror and I want the feelings. So I will probably actually love it.
Okay.
I will just have like a lot of showers while I'm reading it.
Great. I'm like, yeah, very like fungal infections. It's very like it's
Like
apocalypse.
STD or other things? Like STD fungal infections or other kinds
like
of fungal
there's
infections?
a fungal parasite consuming the inside of your body slowly,
Right.
starting.
I only
the
bring
growth
that
in
up
the
because it's
brain.
romance. The minute you bring romance in, you think STDs if you're thinking horror.
I was thinking
didn't
that
cross my mind.
No, it
I
didn't cross my
fungal
mind either.
crossed mine
Yeah.
because during the AIDS crisis, horror
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
infections was
Huge.
the allegory.
Actually, very
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Grim Reaper advert. Ooh.
Yeah.
My partner actually said to me the other day, and he starts the conversation going like, this really interesting fact. He's like, yeah, and it was this advert and they were in the bowling alley. And then, and I was like, and the Grim Reapers were bowling down families. And he was like, what? It was in the 80s. And I was like, I've been studying this for a long time, bub. Like, do you think I don't know about that came up in the 80s? And he goes, well, I want to watch it. And we watched it. And he was like, that is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it was on like it
I was
Family
like,
Hour. It
yep.
was scary.
And he was like, why are they bowling down the straight people? I was like, that's
Because
the
that-
whole that
Because that's
That is
who
what
they were
people
worried
do.
I was
about.
like, that's the scary
Yeah.
stuff,
We're
Dal.
evil and we bowl
Yeah.
down the street.
Well, no,
people.
but also in Australia, the queer community was really strong during AIDS at getting on board and protecting each other. There was a huge movement of handing out condoms, talking, and straight people were idiots. Like, everyone was like, oh, this is the queer disease, and they
found
didn't
in-
protect themselves. And so the messaging was like, straight people stop being idiots.
Yeah.
Stop, you're killing
Like,
me.
anyone can get it. Children can get it. Anyone can get it. Like, seriously, it was such a thing. I lived through it, and I remember, like, it was just astonishing how people wanted to ghettoize it off like a disease cares, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this in terms of when you bring romance in, sex is foregrounded. And obviously sex as risk is foregrounded in horror. Like you mentioned, the final girl, and the minute, there's goodness is associated. I'm doing finger quotes for those of you who are like listening. Goodness is equated with kind of not having sex. And
Yeah,
once you
they
bring
break that
queerness
down in
in,
Scream, that's why I mentioned it. That's like
Yeah.
the rules is you have to be a virgin, you can't drink, you can't do drugs, and you can't say anything like, I'm just going to go to the other room for just a minute. Otherwise, you're going to die.
yeah. Like I grew up with Freddy Krueger and that whole thing. If you're having sex, you're dead. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but once you bring in queerness with horror, romance, and sex, there's a lot of room to play there, right? Because sex is risky in different ways. So how do you approach that?
What do you mean?
Well, like if you're in a queer novel and if you have sex, you die, there's different implications there, right?
Yes, you're killing off your lesbians. But you can't really do that in fiction anymore because now we're so hyper aware to it. You can't kill off your queer characters. What's the term? Kill your gays. You can't bury your gays.
But
it's like it's horror. Everyone gets
take.
buried, so
Yeah, no, you can kill them.
yeah, I would imagine.
I very much have like recent development where I detest this idea of like you need to do good representation for this marginalized community. I'm writing about me and my marginalized experience. Not everyone's going to like it, but the way I want to write it, maybe people are going to die.
It's a horror.
It's a horror.
There's fungal infections that are slowly eating the inside of your body.
That is so good.
Now I'm just thinking about fungal infections every time.
Sorry,
I'm
Amy,
I'm thinking about a bunch of gay men getting slaughtered in an orgy or something. That's
Oh.
all. I was like, I know that's awful. That's not awful. You know, everybody do what you want to do.
I said you need to
stand by
get
that.
more radical.
When you were like sex and STDs and horror, I was like orgy, gay men, slasher.
I know you learn too much about us
Write
on
that
this
down.
show.
But to Amy's point about sex and it being forward in romance and stuff at the forefront, how do you avoid or do you even bother to avoid the appearance of that? Like if your queer people are having sex in your novel and then one of them dies, is that okay because it's part of the traditional trope of horror? Or?
This is what I come up against. There's lots of different opinions and a lot of people really value like the good representation, and I definitely used to come from that angle, but I read The Queer Art of Failure.
This is like, I really feel like that should just be our logo, is this book.
Before you read any of the books of the month, you have to read
Queer Art of Failure.
Yeah. And like that really like completely did a 180 for me because I was like, yeah, the whole thing is we've been judged and put into these little boxes according to exactly how we need to present to be acceptable. Now that I finally get to actually choose what I want to do, I'm not going to stay in that box. And especially when it's according to standards set by the people who made those goddamn boxes in the first place. Like it is not the same. It may mimic the same sort of like you said, a trope or something like that. It's like, yeah, the bury your gays. And that still falls in line with, yep, the lesbians die at the end. But I'm coming at it from self-experience, where it often hasn't in other cases. And that often means that it's not just that the ending is the same because the rest of the narrative is entirely changed by the fact that I'm coming from my experience. It's like, yeah, they may still die at the end, but everything that led up to that could be different. Yeah. And also the way they die and the message it sends.
Even just the fact that you are behind the writing, right, changes it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we towed the line for so long, like as a community, like writing books and doing films with good representation and being good queers and stuff. It's like we don't have to. So I'm so tired. I'm so tired of that.
Yeah. But I also think we did, like, as a community, we all got together and started doing stuff like that because it was palatable to the people that we needed approval from to continue writing and become successful enough.
You have to be careful,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
Talk about the AIDS crisis, but we had to be careful after that.
Yeah.
And there is something about being accepted into the greater culture. So like now we can have movies about gay people and you can in many places be openly gay and books about queer people. And there is something about being able to do that and being part of the mainstream culture. But then we have sort of done the 180, 360, whatever. Yeah. Where now it's like, well, actually, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of the mainstream culture
We're in
anymore.
these spots now because sadly enough, we had to assimilate.
Yeah.
But now we can break free from that box.
And this is a very white Western perspective.
I was about to say,
I completely agree.
I was about to say, because not
so
everyone
white and
can
Western,
assimilate.
but
No, I was going to say that as well. This exact sort of like area that we're touching on has become very important in my research recently, and sort of addressing how, like, okay, we had to assimilate for survival, and now we're looking at it and going, hey, actually, I don't want to assimilate to the system because it's awful, and sort of how you can't really properly, truly escape that system if you're only doing it from one perspective.
Yeah.
Like it is like, if it's not intersectional, it's not feminism.
That's right.
And that
That's
comes
right.
into exactly this movement of like, call it reclaimed monstrosity,
I love that.
stuff like that. So it's like, we reclaim words and all that, reclaiming monstrosity, but you can't just do it from one perspective. Otherwise you are literally just perpetuating the cycle that people put us in.
Yeah.
Like you need to be addressing gender and sexuality and disability and race and ethnicity and class. And that's a very big project.
Yeah.
It's massive.
There's so many, which like everything else, the answer is always more. We just need more of it, and we need more people to write it and more people to make films of it, etc., etc. But horror is such an interesting avenue, I think. Like you're talking about, monstrosity is such an interesting avenue to do that radical work with, because of how monstrous it is. And that you'd think like, that's not something you want to reclaim. It's like, actually, yeah, I think it's working a little bit.
It also reaches a whole different audience and means that can be revolutionizing something in its own way that romance can be, that, fantasy can be. And that the idea that they'll just all kind of roll forward gradually together, every step in the right direction, until we do start to see the change that we want.
We're in all your genres.
Yeah.
You can't fucking get rid of us.
And just listening to you all, it's a decentering of power, right? Like in terms of speaking back, instead of speaking to the center, you're speaking to the self, the community,
Yeah.
So
the edge.
this 100%. Is why the romance, bringing romance into horror is so interesting to me, because it brings in an inherent value to relationality. Like being like, this is not just about survival of the self, this is about like survival of the people that you love, and making that inherent to the horror narrative. And if you're wanting to escape these horrible systems, if you want to escape the systems that either produce monsters or make you yourself the monster,
and thrive on isolating you.
Yeah.
They only work because
Exactly.
they isolate
Because a
you.
lot
So
of
the
horror
only way
is
you can
so
escape all of that is through
isolating or
collectives.
about isolation. Whereas I do feel like queerness should be about, and not just about romantic relationships, but about community.
Yeah, community, I think, should be at the basis of a lot of queer work that people are doing across all the genres. And I think actually it's interesting now that we've come around to that. My brain's working. Words are forming.
He's awake.
He's awake. I see the light. Is that you've got like the isolationism of horror, but then also horror can be so based on community and how a group of people survive something that's so awful. And then I often find a lot of queer romance that I'm reading, especially own voice queer romance, has a shit ton of community behind these protagonists and the way that they fall in love and who they lean on in different situations. There's a lot less isolationism in that. So putting those two forms together in both their beautiful like queerness actually seems now like the perfect choice.
It makes sense.
They fit like a puzzle in my mind.
Yes, because it emphasizes, I really like the emphasis on negative affect and positive affect at the same time through community, because it really like dramatizes the whole spectrum of emotion.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about the bury your gaze moment about killing people, that it is also there's something about mixing it with romance that gives it a different impact, right? I was wondering if you talk about that.
Yeah, that's sort of like where I was going with the inherent collectivity, and definitely what you said about the caveat that it's not just about romantic relationships. Like it is very much about a collective in general. But I like how romance specifically brings in this, like, it's like, this is a story with a happy ending.
Yeah.
I'm losing my train of thought as
No,
well.
no, it's okay.
We did touch on it earlier.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Even if they die right at the end, right at the end, they still get their little happy ending before that. Or even if they die and then they get their happy ending, it's still a happy ending because they're together, even in zombie form or in death or whatever.
Yeah, and I was thinking about what you were saying about more, and it's also about multidimensionality, right? It's about that they're not just buried. They're not there to just serve the story to be the victim.
Yes.
That there's a kind of subjectivity to the people being killed that we're not used to when like the bodies in horror are often disposable bodies, right? And
Particularly the queer bodies.
and romance is about subjectifying people who aren't always allowed subjectivity. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Desperate to read the book. Can't wait until you. That's no pressure from your supervisor. That is literally, I really can't wait to read the book. And it does. I have really wanted to read more horror romance after touching on some, and it does range like the whole range. But I agree with you. Like starting with Feast While You Can is just like it opens so many kind of doors. I can't wait to read more.
I want to read like a short piece of fiction about the gay, like the queer character that dies first in the traditional horror movie, but doesn't actually die and survives. And then it's from his perspective watching all the other people die.
You shouldn't tell
And they
people
think he's
this
dying.
because you might
that's
want
a
to
great
write it.
pitch,
Yeah.
Harry.
You write it.
Write that down.
I'll take it.
I feel like I probably, it's so hard to recall because I just have so many things that I've read, but I feel like I probably have read something like that.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I doubt that's, not I doubt. I figure that's already been pretty much done. It doesn't seem that revolutionary, but it would be funny. But I would call it a comedy, not a horror.
Oh, interesting.
This is segueing into territory of what Millie wants from Riley, which is some book recs.
Oh, yeah. Book recs.
Oh, Jesus. I was like, you said this earlier, and I was like, yes, I got to remember that. I didn't.
I should have let you step away and like make a list so that you
I'm
come
like-
back with it.
The one you recommended to me.
Yes, well, that's less of a horror romance, though. It's more like my thing is my interest in horror romance honestly stems from the fact that there isn't a lot of it, specifically in the queer realm. It's getting very big, but in the area that I'm most interested in, it's very sparse.
It's great. We get in on the ground floor.
Well, yeah, I'm like,
I feel like I've heard one about, it's a sapphic romance about a relationship with a vampire going wrong. A drip of my blood.
There's a lot of
drip
sapphic
on-
vampire
A
stuff.
drip on my blood.
But Millie's not calling that horror.
Yeah.
That's just
yeah,
like,
that's how scary is it?
You're right. Sorry, that's lighthearted.
If
and
the
fluffy,
vampire
isn't
is horrific, then it's a horror. But
Yeah.
just because it is a vampire doesn't mean it
has
is
a
a
big-
horror.
yeah.
it? Drip of blood on the front, so I think it's bloody.
I feel
know.
like this is going to give some good post engagement this month. I think everyone
I
should
do
write in
think-
and tell us how
Yeah.
they feel.
Okay, I do have a good queer horromance rec. One that I read recently, "Someone You Can Build a Nest In" by John Wiswell. It's
Build a nest in.
yeah,
Like that. Nice.
Yeah.
Like that.
it's well, I'm trying to think of like a quick way to summarize it. It is like a monster and human romance. And it is monstrous. Like it is
Great.
gross and fleshy and shapeshifty, and like the romance is inherent to the narrative because it's about a monster who needs a body to lay her eggs in.
God.
That was
Amazing.
incredible. That's probably like my best example for one where
Picturing
it's like they are-
spiders now. Picturing spiders. and
I
things
don't
and
think there's any spiders. Don't
parasites.
worry.
Just
Oh, so these are some of your fears. Well, you're a bit of a germaphobe, so.
yeah, cockroaches.
Oh.
Imagine a relationship with a
dangerous.
shape-shifting cockroach.
Well, some people might be up for that. So
Just-
I feel like this is a good place to end.
just the
Except I've
fly.
got one more question, which I asked people last week, is what's your horror fear? Like if I hate zombies and Harry doesn't want a cockroach.
Well, Riley said they're not really afraid of anything.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, I was when I was watching and everyone was giving their answers. I was thinking about it. I was like, I just don't really think as much of anything because I'm like now I just think it's all really cool.
Yeah.
And that has definitely like evolved over time. But like even when I was really young, I've mentioned this a lot. I watched a random episode of Buffy when I was like 11 or 12. Season 2, the Frankenstein episode,
Yep.
and it's like
Yep.
it opens with like skin shredded off of a body.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah. What did
So-
you think of the silent episode? That's the one everyone's scared of, those silent creatures.
That was camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's campy.
There you
Yeah.
go.
That's cool. Yeah, like I used to have a pretty big fear of like I could not see like visually needles, blades
Yeah.
going into skin.
Yep.
But once again, I'm also like cool with that now because I've
Yeah.
developed so many medical issues
Yeah.
and become so desensitized to it.
What about like those medical shows where they show surgeries
911 is my favorite show.
Yeah, right. See, I probably couldn't watch
That
that.
is that gets guts.
I'm the same, but for a completely different reason. I'm so afraid of everything that I kind of come around to it where it's like, well, I'm so equally afraid of all the stuff that it doesn't matter what's on the screen.
Yeah, right.
There's certain stuff that I can't do. Like I have a real phobia of clowns.
Yeah,
So I
fair.
can't do clowns, and I have serious claustrophobia, so I can't do. I say that, but then I have watched, what's the one with the cave system where they get lost in the cave? Like,
The
I've watched that. I
Descent.
love that
No.
movie.
I
So,
love
I
that
don't know.
movie.
I guess I just like have nightmares afterwards. But
That
I'm like,
was
this is such
so-
a great movie. I love it.
so
But
good.
I'm really into monster movies.
Yeah.
I was telling Riley this earlier. I'm always like, oh, I don't love horror. But then my friends always remind me like, oh, monster movies are horror movies.
So what are some of your
Oh, yeah,
favorite
like
monster movies?
Sharks, big crocodile. Like
Yeah.
I love water
Oh, I
movies,
love
water
those.
monsters,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. But I'll watch basically anything like Godzilla,
I was gonna say
that
King
sort of
Kong.
stuff.
Love
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Love those movies.
So you guys
Yeah.
are actually horror fans.
I am, but certain kinds of horror, I guess.
Yeah.
I just don't seek out horror. I sort of incidentally end up
Yeah.
engaging with horror.
Well, look at the world we live in.
What's yours? What did you say yours was?
I like everything. Well, Jaws is one of my top films. I love
Yeah.
Alien. I think Alien is just
I
one of
love
the
Alien.
best. The
Love
first two are great.
The new Alien movie. I mean, it's not new anymore, but that was so good. Like a return to the form of Alien.
Ew.
It was so
Is
good.
that with all the face huggers and the mutant, the hybrid? That's terrifying. See, that bit gets me. I can't do this.
It's cool.
This new one has these like insect things that like drop down on webs.
Oh, in the
right?
TV show.
In the TV show.
I can't wait to
And
watch
they
it.
they're like bugs and they're crawling all over these people's like bodies. Ugh. And they
Harry's
like
thing is
leeches.
bugs.
So they like latch onto the thing and drain the entire human body of blood until this tiny insect has this enormous sack full of blood on the back of it. And it's like trying to get away. And you're like, this is disgusting. But in one of the scenes, it gets out to go to water. It escapes enclosure, goes into water,
Oh, yeah.
and drops tadpoles into her bottle.
That's based
She
off of a
drinks
real
the
parasite.
the guy drinks the bottle, and
Yep,
it's like all over
parasites.
his like inside him, and it's latched on, and it's just sucking all the blood
Yeah.
out of him. So they cut him open to try and get them off. Meanwhile I'm at the couch like, oh.
You have to put
like
so many
struggling
trigger
for
warnings
air.
I'll be
on
watching
these
that and I'll be like,
episodes.
that's
My partner's
so
like, why do you
Yeah.
watch this? And I'm like, because I'm
Because
fascinated.
it's amazing.
I can't get
But
away
what
from
about, did you watch The Witch? That was good. The Witch was good. Really like broody. Midsummer. Did you watch Midsummer?
I love that movie.
No, see,
I
that's
love that.
less of the kind of thing. I'm not really into like psychological horror
right.
I
because
love
people suck. And I'm like, that's
They
not
do.
news to me.
Yeah,
You know,
they
like,
do
This
suck.
person's so creepy. But also it's the thing of like, this person's so creepy. They're so hard to read. They have a blank stare. And I'm like, that's just autism.
that's my
That's
reality.
not scary to me.
People suck. They're not scary.
That's not new. Like, oh, there's a serial killer. Yeah.
People suck, and then they're also great. There are also great people.
I watch movies where people are great. I love those movies.
I think we need more of that. I saw just this is a nice place to end. Forgotten his name. The guy who did Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
He gave this amazing speech last year about how he feels like it wasn't right. It wasn't the right thing to do, in that he made this amazing anti-hero, and that people have fallen into actually making stories about really horrible people doing really horrible things.
People are so horrible about. I've never watched Breaking Bad again.
It's incredible,
being
but horrific.
terrible.
That's a great
Yeah.
horror
It's not news.
series, actually.
But
It
people are
is
so horrible about his wife. They're like, the
Yeah,
wife was
and
the
she
real
wasn't.
villain.
She was not at all.
Hello?
I feel like if you release that show now, there'd be more feminist support for Skylar.
I would hope so.
But then he said what he wants to do now is go back to creating people we can look up to a little bit in some ways that have moral compasses, and that there is more of a sense of good and bad, because he feels like people leaned so far into celebrating the anti-heroes. That's what took us to where we are now.
I think it's what the audience needs, not necessarily. Again, it's not like.
And again, we
believe
need
in good
more of
representation.
what good is, with quotation
But I feel
marks.
like people respond that way to media now, where it's like, that character's so problematic, you can't like that character, and it's like, it's just a movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody clam down.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we need more violent, queer,
Yeah,
flesh meat sacks.
absolutely.
Agreed.
On that note, I feel like
On
that
that
might be
note.
the title of the episode.
Queer people being
Violent,
terrible
queer
on
flesh
screen.
meat
I don't know that we'll get away with that one, but it's been a joy talking horror. I want to read more. I think I've been watching a lot of films. I need to read more horror.
I can definitely give later more horror Rex, just not Horrormance. It's very
That's all right.
Good horror, Rex.
Yeah.
I'm happy with horror. I'll give it a go. I'll squirm in the sheets.
Especially
Oh,
if it's
really?
queer horror,
That's also
but not
romance.
necessarily
it'll
romance.
all
Yeah.
be- it'll all be queer horror. That just might not be romance.
Anyway, let's wrap up there. Thank you for joining us, Riley. We'll have to have you back again sometime because I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about with just horror, let alone horror romance. So it's been a pleasure, everyone. If you haven't got your copy of Feast While You Can, now is the time. Next week we'll be talking to the authors Mick and Onge. And we try not to give spoilers, but there might be a couple, so get reading before next week. And then the week after we have live book club.
Oh, exciting.
Excuse the coughing.
Good month.
Hopefully there'll be less coughing at the book club.
We can only hope. I feel like this plague is it's suitable for this month.
I'll say it's
She
on
drank-
theme.
Horror plague.
She drank from the water bottle.
Oh, don't. I don't want to imagine that.
Inside.
Oh my
Inside.
I get to see it in real life. That's awesome.
Someone
Anyway,
put down tarps first.
Don't ruin the vibe.
Anyway, thanks for joining us and we'll see you next week.
bye.
Amy And is hosted by Amy Matthews, Abby Guy, Peyton Hogan, Justina Ashman, Harry Stewart and Millie Heffernan. This podcast is recorded on Gardenland with music by Anthony Wigmore and Mass Mysterio. Our logos and branding are designed by Abby Guy. This episode was edited by Millie Heffernan.